Okay, welcome to another episode of Chrono Craze. Finally getting around to doing a review on this watch, the Vertigo Pilot 1 Reverse Panda Mechanical Chronograph. And doing this in a different way this time. I got notes and I kind of scripted out what I wanted to do, so hopefully it'll go by a lot smoother, on point. And yeah, less rambling and hopefully shorter. So let's go into this. This is the brand is Vertigo. Vertigo. It's a micro brand started in 2015. They're based in Italy, and this is probably their most, I wouldn't say famous, but this is one model that they're probably known for mostly. Although I believe they have one other different model that's a dive watch. And for this Pilot 1, there's another version that's not a Panda, that's just got the black subdials there, but the rest of it's the same. And if you want to pick up one of these, as of the date of this original recording, which is March 6, 2019, actually rather it's 7th actually today, they're on their third production batch for pre-orders, I believe, for these watches again. So yeah, if you're interested, check it out. I don't know if they've done anything different. I don't know which batch this is part of, the first or second. I got it from a dealer, authorized dealer, I guess retailer, seller in the United States. And yeah, so I have no idea what stock he has, but I can't see that there's any difference. I would like to hope that maybe the upcoming one, maybe they might make some improvements over the criticisms I have about this. So let's get started on the specs on this. It's a 41 millimeter case without the crown, so it's just basically more or less straight across, however you want to measure it, without the pushers, obviously, just the case itself. It's relatively compact, I would say, and a good size for this watch. The lug to lug is 48.5 according to their specs online, although I swear I measured shorter, like more like 47, but it's around there, 48.5, we'll go with that. The lug width is 22 millimeters, and the thickness is about 13 millimeters. Inside is a Seagull ST1901 hand-wound mechanical column wheel chronograph movement. Very typical for a lot of micro brands to use this type of mechanical movement for a chronograph to keep it affordable and but pretty good quality. Seagull is a Chinese-based manufacturer of watches and movements, but as I understand it, this movement is basically a replica or recreation or whatever you want to call it of an actual Swiss movement, Venus. I don't know the exact reference number for that movement, but it does have a Swiss origin for this movement. So essentially, you're kind of getting Swiss technology, but they bought, I think, the manufacturer, the machining equipment or whatnot to basically make their own movements just like that. The movements can be hit or miss from what I'm told, but I've never really heard of any horror stories, and overall they seem to work pretty good. And we'll go over this in a moment. And the water resistance is 100 meters, even though there is no screw down crown or pushers. So this is not exactly a dive watch, so I wouldn't even really go there, but you should be fine with some splash of water, or you get it wet a bit, provided you don't let it soak out and really get submerged much. I can't imagine that would be a problem for a watch like this. So what else? There's 120 click unidirectional ceramic bezel, and I'll go over that right here. And there's a sapphire crystal that's AR coated, and you do get a pretty clear view of the dial through this crystal. It's very legible. which is great. And the case is 316L stainless steel, pretty typical fare in terms of base material for a watch. And the lume that's on the applied, it's not applied, the Arabic numerals, and the handset, the pointer for the chrono, seconds, and the Vertigo logo, that little triangle logo, is all lumed. I'll give you a lume shot later. And that's, yeah, C1 Super Luminova, and this comes with a black leather strap, which is this one right here. And I'll go over that later too. There's a reason why I have it on my own. Aftermarket one from Rios 1931, German-made buffalo grain leather strap. It's much nicer. And let's go into why did I choose this particular watch. Well, I like a lot of things. I have been recently for some time gravitating towards vintage style. But sometimes you don't want to deal with real vintage. They can be expensive. The real watches of inspiration that this takes from, we'll go into that later, and could be more costly to fix. And yeah, it's just a lot more money, and perhaps it might be trickier to really do your research and make sure the vintage watch, if you do pick up one, is legit and everything's good and all of that. And this kind of nullifies a lot of that worry for the most part, although it is not without its QC issues, but it's newer, more modern, and definitely less expensive than some of the watches that this is basically kind of modeled around or after. I like the vintage kind of military vibe to this. I believe a lot of militaries use a similar style watch. A little bit larger, 43 millimeters, I think is what they use the average around instead of this 41. So slight difference, but I like the smaller size. I have a 6 3/4 between that and the 7-inch wrist, so that fits pretty well. And the lug to lug rather, is rather short, so it helps. But the main thing that got me interested in this is I have a couple of pictures here, and this is a book that I got, Chasing Time by Alistair Gibbons, and this was, I believe, recommended, and I took notice of this from Erica's Originals, Marie Nationale, Emin Straps, and she kind of pointed this book out and checked it out, and it's not that much, and it's a good reference book for a lot of vintage watches, primarily Swiss, I believe. This might be around one particular collector's, his own collection. That's what, so most of this stuff is Swiss. There's not really anything Japanese in here, but nonetheless, very nice stuff in here. So let me get into this a little bit. Just give me some space to open. So this watch is inspired by, primarily for me, I took notice of Heuer, vintage Heuer, not Tag Heuer, and I would say this is definitely reminiscent of their German military watch right here, the Bundeswehr. I can push this over enough to show you, right there, and I'll pull the watch out, see if we can try to get a focus on this. Bundeswehr. It's from the 60s and 70s, but this design kind of predates this model here. I think you might find that, I believe, Breguet, their Type 20 watch, which is, I'll try to flash the picture of it here somewhere, and you'll see that it's very similar design. I think that came first around the early 50s, and but they all kind of more or less are designed pretty much around the same way. Unlike this one, these and other pilot chronographs usually have a flyback, I believe, a chronograph feature, so that when you hit the reset button, it just instantly goes back and continues counting down. Whereas this one doesn't have that feature. If you reset it, well, you probably should stop it first and then reset it. It will just go back to 0 and stop, and you have to start and stop it again. So that's a difference, but not a big deal. So this was one inspiration, and I'd say the Hoyer Octavia. Yeah, something like one of these from the 70s. Kind of gave me the inspiration as well because of that reverse Panda look. So I kind of like that. It kind of made it a little bit more sportier version of a military watch, you know, almost motorsports like. But that's why I like that. And here's another example too. You know, so you kind of get that vibe, don't you think? Which is pretty cool. So again, on Octavia, around the 60s or 70s, that's when you'll find these. Maybe look up the, what was the one? Wrote it down here. The Octavia. Oh, maybe I didn't. There is something else. I had the reference number somewhere. 7763 is maybe one of the reference numbers you might want to look up. 30. Something around those series, and maybe look up like something like the Viceroy. They're all kind of more or less this design. So that's one thing. And let me see if I have Zenith. Zenith was also another design. If they don't have it in here, guess they may not. Look up Heritage Tipo, T-I-P-O, CP2, and I might try to flash an image of it right now here. And you can see it actually will, if I have a picture still up over here, you can see that it actually looks pretty close, especially like the way the bezel is done and the style. And yeah, except this is Panda, but you know, you get the similarities there. So those were my main inspirations of no, I don't think it's in here. Those were my main inspirations. This kind of combines all of that look into one. Let's get down on this a little bit better. And for under, basically, I think they still sell for under 500, maybe more if you get it from Vertigo, or maybe after the pre-sale is over. But I did get this for under like 480. And if you look at any other examples, I think maybe that Hoyer Bundeswehr, for a decent example, it's probably runs at least 2,000, maybe 3. And yeah, you can easily, Breguet and Zenith, you can easily look much higher, especially Breguet, for an original Type 20. So yeah, this fits very much more comfortably within my spending habits. Yeah, and I got this from again, I bought this in the United States from a VB. It's watch.com. It stands for Valentino Bielo. I can't even pronounce it. I'll probably put a link somewhere on the bottom. But yeah, you know, I just didn't feel like dealing with overseas in Italy, just in case something was wrong and whatever. If I wanted to return it, I think it'd be easier to return it back to someone in the United States rather pay shipping to Italy, which can be much more expensive. Just shipping out of country internationally, as some of you might know. And generally, I found that the owner and the seller at VB Watch, Valentino himself, is a very good guy. Great customer service, and I needed it because there were some issues with this. And this is actually my second example. I'll get into that later. Okay, so some of the alternatives to the styling you might want to try to look at if you didn't want to go with this brand or this particular look. First would be Hemel, the HFT20. They don't have a Panda dial, it's just black, and they come in a Mecha Quartz version, which is almost as much as this, which is a mechanical column wheel chronograph. And they also have a NE88, which is a Seiko-based mechanical movement, but that runs closer to 1,000, and I think those are all sold out by now. but they do have some options there, and that might be the next closest one to something that looks like this. HKED. I guess I'm not clear, but it sounds like he's a dude that does like modifies watches or has special edition of watches somehow. I think they're through EMG, or maybe is it from Seagull directly. I'm not sure, but just look up HKED and watches, or limited editions, and you'll see a bunch of things come up. And he actually has, I think he has an actual watch that looks like this guy here, the actual Bundeswehr, in the works, or is it out yet? I don't know. And it's basically based on the same ST 1901 movement. Just looks a bit closer to this with the hands, and especially the bezel and everything. Much closer to that look. But I'm pretty happy with this. As far as I know, this is one reason I got this. This is the only brand that has this style with a reverse panda that looks exactly, that's like this. Anything else is usually just all black. And if you do a reverse panda, you're looking at anything close to this, you're starting to go into like the motorsport style, like something people are familiar with is the Hamilton Intramatic Auto Chrono. It doesn't have a rotating bezel. It has an internal tachymeter that's like a contrast color to whatever's inside there, and it comes in something like this colorway and reverse, where it's white with the black. A lot of people like that, but that's still at least $2,000. I think maybe middle 2000 something. I forget, but that's a very nice one. Another, again, alternative, but I guess not as much as the first two I named, or we're going into motorsport style, is in a compacts style. And this is a compacts, not a bi-compacts, as some people have a misconception of saying because they see two subdials. As I understand it, anything with the running seconds with the main time is not considered a compacts. You wouldn't label that. So, it's not really a bi-compacts. You only have one complication, so it's compacts. Similarly, if you have three subdials and one of them still is a running seconds, that's called a bi-compacts. And like something where there's four, like what you might see in a vintage Universal Genève chronograph that has four subdials, and it still has one running seconds at least in one of them, that's called a tri-compacts. You can look it up and Google it. That's the way it's actually supposed to be named and counted. But anyways, something that looks like this with just two registers. The EMG DL63 pre-order was under 400, but now it's gone up to 4, but you can still pre-order those, which is what I did before this one. And it looks nice. It's basically like this, black on the white dials, and it's got an outer white tachymeter. It's that style, like the Intramatic, the Hamilton, very racy inspired. And I like how I had like segmented, 3 segmented areas to divide up the 5-minute zones or segments better on the subdial in blue. I had that, and then I canceled it because I saw this and I was like, no, this is kind of what I really originally wanted, more of a military aviation style versus motorsports. And that one I'd had to wait about, at that time, which is just about a month ago or so, 7 months, this is the beginning of the 2019. I think it wouldn't be ready till at least July, maybe August, I think July. So yeah, I didn't want to wait for it, so I switched and got this. What else is there? The Mercer Lexington is another one that looks like that. And if they were still around, there's a very limited edition from Baltic. They have a bi-compacts Panda and reverse Panda that they came up with sometime late last year. It was a couple of months after the wind up in San Francisco, which was about May or June. So I think it came out basically around August or September, and it sold out fast because there was only very limited. That one's very nice and clean, but you can no longer get that. And of course, the other alternative to this is the actual watches of inspiration, which would be the Hoyers, the Zenith, the Breguets, those you can always get one of those real ones if you have the money, but I don't, so that's I have this. Now the negatives. I'm going to go do this a certain way. So my first example, I'm going to list out what problems it has, and then I'll list out the second example, what problems it has, or the QC, the negatives that I found too, in addition to what was, which the first example also had, but the first example has, I'm going to say what they had first, which this one didn't, which is good. So the first example, the white baton markers in the bezel, the 50, 55, 5 and 10 minute markers were not completely opaque. You could see through this paint, or I guess is this supposed to be ceramic in there, or maybe just the black is and they filled it with white paint. I don't know. I figure if it should be all ceramic, then that somehow they filled it in with white ceramic. But in either case, it wasn't completely very as opaque as you see here. You can sort of just make out a little bit of the black through it underneath it, which didn't look all that great. Yeah, so that wasn't too good. The 30-minute chrono subdial right here had an extra paint edge, like you see where the top of the 30 is, like right on the edge where the black, the dial is. That there was a little extra paint, I guess, that overhang that, creating like a little bit of a straight edge at the top, so it wasn't perfectly symmetrical. So yeah, that kind of bummed me. You couldn't really unsee that once you saw it, and especially with the reflection, you probably catch that edge also in a lot of angles, just for the way the reflection will show. It's a little bit straighter there, so that was a bummer. And right next to that, I think right around the 2-minute mark or so, also right on the edge, but you look at this way, you can see that on the inner side it was a little bit chipped too, so that wasn't too good. Let's see what else. The 30-minute oh yeah, when I was playing, I got it about 4 p.m.ish, late in the day, work day. I got home and I powered it up. I was just giving a test run, checking the chrono, here and there. Between then and maybe about 7:30, before 8 o'clock, sometime I just figured, okay, just stop it, and I'll reset it again. And the 30-minute chrono hand flew off. I was like, what? How embarrassing. That did it for me. It's like I was trying to look past the issues I saw before. So, I want to deal with the return. It's, it really should, but I was trying to give it a little bit of a pass. And let me see how it's going to go. But that flying off didn't help. So there were some other issues too, which I'll go into the second example here. But just to tell you that what did I do to resolve this with the first watch, is that I contacted VB Valentino. He listened, apologized, and he was really understood, and he made quick efforts to send me out a new model. But before he did, he personally test ran and inspected the watch with a loupe before shipping it out to me. So he's just trying to look at it for any imperfections, the alignment issues, whatnot, and just make sure it runs and the hand didn't fly off and all that before. So that was good. He put that extra time and care to make sure this time it wouldn't happen. I got the best example he could get to me with the. I don't think he has that many in stock, but yeah. And also, so the turnaround time for me, I got this on a Monday, and then I sent this back after I talked to him the next day, and he already started to send back a replacement pretty much the next day or so, as soon as he could. Actually, he tested it overnight from the time I told him and to the next day, so he could get out sometime in the afternoon or the next day. And I got it back basically from Monday to maybe Wednesday or Thursday at the latest. I think within 4 days at the latest, a turnaround to get a new replacement watch. So that was good of him. Of course, I didn't have to pay for the return shipping. He reimbursed me, and he also gave me a free 22 millimeter Grupo Gamma. He also sells Grupo Gamma watches, by the way. Canvas strap of my choice for my troubles. So I picked that one, and that was good of him, and he sent that over. But so I got this second unit, and it was better, definitely. The hand didn't fly off. It didn't have the paint chip or anything. But it retains some of the QC issues that the first one also had, which primarily are alignment issues, and I'll go over that. The bezel insert is just ever so slightly off. I mean, if you look at it overall, it looks pretty good, but I think it's clicked up. I mean, just a little bit closer, clockwise, just a bit. If you look at it, I usually judge it by these markers here, in line with the lugs here. So if I just did something like that, more or less, that would probably be a little bit more centered. It's just like barely not even a degree off, but these are things I notice. Is that it may slide back or not. That doesn't bug me too much, because for the most part it does look fairly centered, and I've seen worse examples where it really is more of an eyesore. I would say that the subdial still slightly off. I don't know, it could be the subdial or the dial itself, because well, this one stands out, sides always stood out to be more than this side, and you might see the indices or markings. There's a little bit more of a gap between that and the edge of the frame, I guess, for the subdial compared to on this side. And I think it's possibly because the dial itself, the black on it, is maybe ever so slightly just closer to this side as opposed to that. So that's maybe why, if they're probably separate, that might account for that little extra gap there, just a tiny bit more. Yeah. So, but then whenever I take pictures of this and post it, no one ever notices it. And for the most part, overall, I look at the overall watch, it doesn't look super unbalanced or really stands out to me much. So, yeah, I just, usually I'm a stickler for these things and I would return it, but I got such good customer care, and I really like the design of this watch, and it's actually working quite well. I say, screw it, I can't really find anything else quite like this, at least in this price range, and it gets a pass for me. Rarely does that happen, but it does. And I figure someday maybe I might, if I cared enough, I might pop off the bezel and the insert and just reattach it so that's better, more perfectly aligned. Just that barely a nudge difference, and maybe see if there's something I can do about the dial or whatever to get it better balance. And I should say that this hand, to be honest, is also slightly off, I feel. The first one I got, it was kind of a tilt or slant or whatever, skewed. So that wasn't too good. But yeah, that's probably why it flew off. This one's better, but I think it's just ever so slightly off. Maybe it's this way, but maybe it's visually because, again, this black dial is slightly over this side more, so it looks maybe closer to that side. I don't know. Sometimes it looks like that. Other times, no, and I don't really care. But I will tell you that when I run the chrono, it's just ticking off the minutes. It's pointing to the indices up to about 9 or 10, I think, somewhere around there. And then from that point on, it starts to shift, and it points a little bit past, just a little bit past the intended mark. So it'll be like 1.5 almost, or half a minute off, somewhere just a little bit past the where it's supposed to be pointing at, as all the way up to about 25 minutes. And then for some reason it'll straighten back up, and it'll point exactly where it should be. I can't wrap my head around what exactly is why it could be like that. I've thought about it too much, and it gives me a headache. But I don't use this for any professional use, and I time my lunches for 30 minutes anyways, and I know where it's supposed to point at, and most of the time that's fine. I mean, I just look where it's basically roughly supposed to be at, and I know how much time I have left, and so that's good enough. But just fair warning, if you get a watch like this, you may experience some of these issues. that I talked about. Yeah, let's see here if I can get into the other parts. Let me stop this and try to wrap this up because I think I need to get ready to do something in a few minutes. Hope I can get this done. So, stock leather strap, not that great. Given that this is an Italian brand, you would think it would have better Italian leather. It's a little stiff. This doesn't feel very supple or anything, you know, it's kind of cheap, and so I had to replace that. And this looks like any other strap, you know, NATOs and other two-piece straps. And the main thing is I didn't like is the buckle. It's too big for this watch, and I'll show you that. I'm not going to put it on, but basically the idea is you put it on. Get this, you know, it's on the underside. I guess it would be like this on my wrist, right? This buckle is just unnecessarily large. I feel like it's almost, I don't know. See, sometimes it looks like it's about half the size of the actual case, but yeah, that, and then you can get this nice around the wrist. It says, I can't get far enough away, but you can see here that this thing creates a bit of, it's so big it creates like what I call like a ledge right here. You can see that, right? And I just flip it over, and I don't know, could it catch? Maybe. It's just not that appealing to me for it, especially if it does get loose or pull out, and then you got this thing here. Yeah, not a fan. So probably never going to reuse that. So this strap is much better. You can often again see this on something like a bun strap, but I don't like bun straps. A little bit too bulky unless you can get one cut particularly petite, so it's not so a big leather piece out there. Yeah, so that's why I like this. It kind of gives that appearance and distance because you got this layering of leather, and it's just a nice contrast and detail that kind of gives that feel, but doesn't have to go there. And yeah, makes a good match for this pilot style watch. The crown grip is okay. It's a little bit, it could be a little bit longer, come out to get a better grip. Yeah, so that's the only thing. It does the job. If I hold it from this side and wind it, it's fine. But some people might have an issue, especially with the proximity to the pushers. If you have particularly pudgy thumbs or fingers, trying to get a good grip and turn it sufficiently, you might get kind of, I can imagine you can get stopped by this maybe sooner than other people, depending how big your fingers are. So that might be an issue, but I've been able to wind it just fine. I can see how some people might have an issue. And I think before sometimes it felt a little bit stiff or resistant, but since I've been wearing it for at least 2 weeks straight, it's kind of, gotten easier. So it's not too bad. And I say in terms of grip as well, I say the bezel grip could be better, maybe because it's polished, but it's not like, it could have just a slight better, more aggressive, sharper kind of edge to it for just to grab onto your fingers. But you saw me rotating it earlier, and it's doable. But sometimes, depending on the angle, if you go here where you don't have as much grip because of this, you may not have enough. But I don't know. That's what I found before. My first example was actually really stiff and harder to turn. This one is much better. So that's something I might improve upon if I could. And I'm not sure if this really is a negative, but both examples, when I got them, they had a bit of an odd smell to them. And I think it's mostly from the case that they came in, but it kind of smelled like lighter fluid. Something about it gave me that lighter fluid kind of smell. It's unusual. So yeah, not too keen on it. Didn't, well, it just was unusual. I wasn't expecting that. So anyways, loom shots, this is pretty good loom, more reactive than I thought it would be. It does last overnight. Like if I give it a good charge at night, if it's dark in the morning, like before dawn, 6 a.m., I can still see it. You know, let's just try to do a quick loom shot if I can. I'll turn off this side as well. There we go. And you see the logo glows, numbers, and the handset and the seconds hands. Yeah, it's pretty intense at first, but then it does fade. But it, you know, it does. Sorry, strobe. In fact, it does fade, but then you know it kind of levels off on that and holds at that dimmer level. And again, I can see it fine overnight. So it would have been cool if they loomed the subdials too, and the bezel. It doesn't loom. If not the whole, the markers, at least the pip at the top would have been useful. Kind of nice to have to be able to do a low light timing event. Probably not by chronograph, but at least by the minute hand. You know, like what you would do with the dive watch. Yeah, that would have been useful. So let me see, what time is it? I have enough time to just say a couple more words before I have to come back to this in a moment, a little bit later. So you might see the time change on here when I do come back. Definitely QC improvements in terms of alignment. That's a must. Again, I can live with it, but they really should work on that. It shouldn't be like that. Could be definitely better there. Better strap. Again, for Italian brand, needs to offer a nice Italian strap option. I think that's just seems fitting and you know, be a better match for this. Smaller buckle if they're going to do that too, because it does look ridiculously oversized, and I don't like, again, that ledge that I say that seems to have. Better logo engraving. It's kind of like laser etched or something on this and the buckle itself. Let's see, it's rather shallow. It's kind of out of focus, alright, but you can already catch it. It's like it's there, but something maybe a little bit more, not necessarily larger, but just, I don't know, deeper if it could. I know it's a very fine logo anyways, but I don't know, maybe it could be bigger so that they can make it deeper. I think that would just make it feel a little bit more quality like. And what else is there? The loom is not bad, but there's always room for improvement. I personally like BGW9 blue loom, so that would be cool, but you know, if they don't change it, they keep the format, it works, it's fine, it does the job, I like it. Again, it lasts overnight, so that's plenty fine for me. I would say, again, add it to the bezel, if not at least to the top pip, so you can do some sort of timing at lower levels if you wanted to. And it would be super cool, really cool if they loom the subdials, at least on this reverse Panda version. Of course, the regular black version that's not Panda, that won't matter. But for this, yeah, that'd be kind of neat. And I think that's pretty much it. Let me just sum up by saying that the Vertigo 1 reverse Panda mechanical chronograph is a charming homage watch to be had for under $500. If you like mid-century pilot chronograph style watches with a military flair, this is a great option that provides a respectable mechanical column wheel chronograph inside. Despite its QC issues, which were evident in the two examples I received, I find it a hard watch to ignore for long. And this particular design aesthetics, I just really gravitates heavy towards. That's why, you know, I agree to keep it and not fuss with it and accept it for its flaws. And overall, it's, when you have it on wrist and you just see it for what it is, and you really don't notice these things, they kind of just fade away. Overall, it still performs pretty good. I get about +6 or +8 seconds per day, I think, if I've been measuring over the last, when I was wearing this at least 2, almost 3 weeks straight. That's what it averaged it out to with my usage. This thing is a strap monster, obviously. The dimensions are very good. And that's probably one of the pros here. It's a handsome design, despite its flaws. And this one is really about how a watch makes you feel and when you wear it and look at it. And this one is particularly strangely satisfying. That's why I put up with some of the QC issues. Still, many might write this watch off with the QC experiences I've had from day one when the 30-minute chrono hand flew off. But I think there's something to be said and had when you have a design that you are simply attracted to, but more importantly, a good representative and seller of the brand who genuinely listens and wants to promptly address your concerns and does as much as he can the second time around to make it a good customer experience. For that reason, I was more forgiving, and I simply won't find this exact look from any other brand at the time of this review. And noteworthy though, also at the time of this review, Hemel announced some sort of upcoming news on an update to their HFT 20 watch I referred to earlier in this review. Perhaps they may be putting out a reverse Panda version of that as well. I don't know. If so, then that may make up my the unique factor to this. That's why I kept it. As, oh, this is the only one brand that makes something like this. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. For what it is right now, I'm happy with it. So is it worth it? I say if you have exceptionally low tolerances for QC alignment issues, then this is not a watch for you. See, but if you get lucky with a good example or just forgiving in not having the perfect detail alignment, then this may be worth a try for around $500, probably less. However, given some of the competition with similar specs and design cues, that can be had for about as much or less, I think the purchase of this watch would sit more comfortably with me had it been at or just below $400. $500 is right at that level I'm okay with, but I think given the QC things and what you can also get competitively, maybe under 5 or closer to 4 would have been better. So the profile, the back, column wheel. If you've seen one of these before, it's nothing fancy. It's very light decoration, not truly blued screws, I don't believe, most likely. You can see the column wheel down here. Yeah, nothing spectacular, but it's good. And so I think I should conclude this with one quick wrist shot. And there you go. Back it up a little. I can't. Trying this on a new tripod and setup. I'm going to try to get better lighting. I should have more coming from behind me, but I'm working on that. So anyways, see, on my less than 7-inch wrist, that's a great job. Right? Pretty good. Not too tall. Curves down sufficiently. Looks good, It's just a handsome watch on the wrist, and I think that's why I like it, and I'm held on to it. And you might find the same thing too. Might be just worth it, Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next laters. I knew I'd forget something, and I definitely went over just 15 minutes. But anyways, didn't show you the chronograph movement, so it's simple column wheel chronograph, but I'll start it off. You can hear the click, and it's a pretty smooth start. And I guess let's do at least 1 minute so you can just see the 30-minute ticker on the right side go off. And here's the movement. It's not a bad looking movement, Can't go too wrong with these, really. Some more angles. If you hear some rustling, that's my dog in the back. But yeah, this is a good looking watch, and it works. Yeah, slight alignment issues, but overall you really start to not see any of that stuff and just accept it and enjoy it, and there it goes. Again, after about 9, I'm not going to wait that long to show it to you, but basically right after about 9, or at least very most 10-minute marker, it starts to go off a bit, not quite pointing directly at the indices as supposed to, but I know that, and so I mean it's not like I can't read the time and know what it's supposed to be pointing at, but after it hits 25, it'll start to get back into alignment, and that'll be that. Yeah, not a big deal for me. It's what you pay for this. It's not inexpensive, but you know, it does the job. And again, most of the time I don't pay it that close attention, and it's a good looking watch. You know, it's oh, the other thing I might as well point this out is it's all high polish all around. There really isn't any brush finishing on this. Something that matters to you. I'm a big fan of brush finishing, so I was a little apprehensive about accepting this, but you know, it doesn't really come out to me to be that blingy or shiny, just the way it is. And I guess it goes in line with the glossy black ceramic dial, black ceramic bezel insert, and the deep kind of inky black dial. I don't know, it looks good. It looks modern yet classic at the same time. You know, it's good. And anything that's white basically is, especially the dials, subdials, or matte white. And so it's a very contrast and easy to read watch. And yeah, you just, even with the reflection, you can see it pretty much works. Never had a hard time reading this thing, so you might enjoy this as well. So that's about it. I'm going to just in this last part that I threw in at the end, which I threw in earlier, with a stop. You can watch it go again. Stop and go. Stop and reset, and it should just fly right back to 0. Just like that. Pretty good. Okay, thanks for watching, and I think my next review will either be probably my glycine, the Chief GL0251. If not that, maybe the Blue Alpinist that I just got. I might share something on that one. We'll see. Expect one of those two likely to come up next after this one. All right, thanks.